Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call the order the Pennsylvania County Board of Supervisors work session Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 at 3:30 p.m. Board meeting room at 39 Bank Street, Southeast Chatham, Virginia. Ms. McCluster, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bowman?
Here.
Mr. Dudley?
Present.
Mr. Height?
Here.
Mr. Ingram?
Here.
Mr. Whittle?
Here.
Mr. Tucker?
Here.
Mr. Dalton?
Here. Moving to item 3, agenda items to be added. Are there any items to be added to the agenda? All right, not hearing any, we'll move to item 4. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Ingram, second by Mr. Tucker. Any further discussion? If none, we're ready to vote.
It may not be up on your screen. It's
It's
just spinning for me.
Nope, it's,
All right, we'll do it verbally. Was that Mr. Ingram that made that motion?
yes,
I
Mr.
did.
Ingram made the motion.
Tucker.
Mr. Tucker seconded, yes.
All right. Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Height?
Yes.
Mr. Ingram?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes. All right. Motion carries. For the citizens' convenience, all work sessions, committee meetings are now being recorded and can be viewed on the county's Facebook at the same YouTube location at the Board of Supervisors business meeting. Please remember that the board's work session is designed for internal board and county staff communications, discussion, and work. It is not a question and answering session with the audience. Accordingly, during the work sessions, no questions or comments from the audience will be entertained. Respectfully, any outburst of disorderly conduct from the audience will not be tolerated and may result in an offended person removed from the work session. As a reminder, all county citizens and other appropriate parties are designated by the board's bylaws are permitted to making comments under hearing of the citizens sections of tonight's business meeting. Item 5A, County Broadband Update. We got Mr. Taylor. Welcome, sir.
I have an update of the River Street Fiber to the Home project that's going on right now in the county. Let me see here. Just to provide a quick update, what the project covers.
Mr.
Again-
Taylor?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can I get you to come really close to that mic?
How's
And you
that?
can hold it if you want to. Whatever's easier for you.
Can you hear me now?
That's a little bit better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, the first slide here just provides a quick update of what the project entails. It basically is passing 16,499 locations. Some of those are funded by CAF2 and RDOF funding, and the remainder of the locations are funded by either VATI 2022 or VATI 2023. We still have not heard back from the state on our VATI 2024 application, which would pass an additional 300 and some, or 3,000 in some locations in the county. Next slide is a somewhat of a engineering view of the project. So if you go to our My River Street page, you'll see a similar, what we call the customer facing map. And that basically just shows what locations are available, what locations are under construction, and what locations are the future build. For us, we also have a pre-order status. That's where we're generating additional, before the construction is complete. And when it's nearing the end of construction, we open up for pre-order status in certain areas so that we can start generating enough leads so that once the job is done, we can start the installation process sooner. We also have future reserve locations. Those are locations that we're looking at for the possible BEAD funding. That's the next round of federal funding. That's BEAD, Broadband Equity and Access Deployment. These locations are locations that we've identified that should be BEAD fundable. And so once the state finalizes the BEAD map and their level 2 gets approved, then we'll come back and actually identify these locations and ask you to support us in an application to get BEAD funding to pass these locations as well with fiber. To give you an update of things that have been completed since the last time I was up here, I think my last update was back in April of this year. We currently have 612 customers installed. That's an increase of 228 from the April timeframe. We also have about 124 orders that are in process, which is within 5 from the April report. So those aren't the same 124 we had before. Of course, we're getting constantly new applications in. Those are, but you can see we're keeping right around 120 or so installs on a month-in basis. That keeps the crews busy as we build out and go to new areas. Currently, we've passed, or we've increased to 3,677 locations.
336,
I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. I heard somebody talking. All right. We've increased from 3,677 locations to 3,790 locations. That puts us at about an increase of 5.4%, or our current take rate is like 19.4. Last time I was here, the take rate was right at 14%. So out of the locations passed, when you take a look at the locations installed and the locations to be installed, we're at a 19.4% take rate. Again, our goal is to get around 40%, and we'll build to that as we pass more and more locations. The Ringo building has been set. It's the last building that we need to install in the county. And so all we have left for there is to get the electrical hooked up and the power installed. The remainder of the locations that we'll be hooking up will be going to pedestals or data cabinets, but that was our last major building that we needed to get set up. I want to say also the Brosville building has been set as well. That was done back during a recent school break so that we wouldn't interfere with the schools. Currently, we have cabinets 1 through 6 under construction in the Strawberry area. That's also Callan's. That our main, one of our large hubs is out there on Strawberry Road, and that will feed approximately 813 locations. And those are all right now in pre-order status. To give you an idea of what we're doing to help generate more applications, on June 12th, there was a sign-up day at the community center here in Chatham. We had 8 people come in that were under construction that we signed up, 4 that were in the future fiber areas, and 5 new accounts where they were able to go on and sign up for service that day. On the 20th, which is, I believe, this Thursday, they're going to be a downtown chow down, and I'll have a little information on that, from 11 to 2 at the First Center Street, where we'll have additional sign up and have some food trucks out there for people who want to come over, learn more about the service, sign up for the service, and get some lunch. On July 13th, out at the Java Volunteer Fiber Department, that's a Saturday from 10 to 1. We're doing a radio remote with WAKG. We also plan to have food trucks out there as well and have additional opportunities for people to learn more about the service and sign up there as well. I have a slide that shows that information here as well. And then on the July 16th and 31st, we'll have additional sign-up days at the community center here in Chatham. Here are some of the information on the marketing events. Again, downtown chow down there, June 20th, 11 to 2. It's open to the public. You don't have to sign up for service if you want to come by, but we hope people will come by, learn more about the service, and sign up if they're in areas that are now serviceable or going to be serviced in the future. And there's a list of several food trucks that we'll have there as well. The other big event that is upcoming is the one at the Java Volunteer Fire Department. Again, that's 10 to 1. And again, we'll have people from River Street out there, as well as some food trucks and other things if people are interested to come out, learn more about the service, and sign up for the service or get more details on it. And the last item there, this is just a little outcrop from our Facebook page where we were having the sign-up day, as well as a statement from one of the citizens who has the service currently, and they're very happy with it. Other than that, if you have any questions or any follow-up items I need to get back to you.
Mr. Ingham, you have a question, sir?
Mr. Taylor, thank you for that update. It's good to see that building in Brosville, by the way. I got a call this morning of a lady that's, and I meant to call Mr. Hyde about this, but a lady that runs a private school, and it's a substantial distance off 360. And there's two houses before that one that are being connected, but yet she was told that her school could not be connected because it's too far off the road. What can you tell me about that? Is there any restrictions or limitations on how far you can go?
I mean, currently, our policy is that if it's within 2,000 feet, we cover that connection charge, no charge to the customer. If it's beyond 2,000 feet, then there's a per foot charge that we would ask the customer to take care of. If you can give me the address or give it to the staff and have them forward it to me, then I'll look into it and get back in details with you on that. But
How much per feet after the 2,000?
it's less than $5 per foot
Okay.
after that.
Okay.
Now, if she was a residence,
Heck yeah.
if it was a residence, then that can actually go through the LECAP program, which is a state-sponsored program where any middle to low-income households get the service. So say perhaps if she's running that out of her house, then maybe she might want to look at signing that up through her house and see if she could get LECAP funding for it.
Okay. That's good. Thank you, sir. We'll check on that.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Any more questions for Mr. Taylor? Nobody?
Do you know, are y'all currently running cable out on 58 East? I had somebody ask me the other day, was that the fiber cable being put in?
I'd have to get back to you on that. We are running so much fiber throughout the county, I can't keep track of exactly where it is and isn't. And the reason why is because we just started up, I want to say, in 4 more areas. So it's a possibility we're out there. At the same time, NBC and Empower are also running fiber, and especially along that 58 corridor, you never have an idea of who, if it's us, if it's them, or it could be sometimes you have some other providers like AT&T or T-Mobile trying to get fiber to some cell towers. But I'll have to check and I'll get back and let you know.
I'll give you my address after the meeting. I need to hurry up and get by my house. Because
So
I need
58
to
East.
tell my current provider where to take a flying leap.
Look out now. Oh.
Mr. Dudley, you have a question, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you for presentation. Appreciate that. How are you looking on schedule? Are you on timeline? Is it correct or is it
So
behind?
we are still on schedule to get everything wrapped up before the end of 2025. There has been some items that have slid over. There's a couple locations, or when I say location, cabinet locations that we weren't able to bring up as early as we like because we had damaged fibers. And so what we typically do, if we have a damaged fiber, we'd like to go out and get that fixed before we bring it live. Nothing worse than to turn up a service and then turn around and tell everybody we have to shut you down for a day or so while we fix it. So that happened in a couple locations. I know that some of the locations where we were hoping to get started, they've moved. Instead of getting started, say, this quarter, they might be starting next quarter, but we're still on target to get everything done before the end of 2025.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome,
Thank you,
sir.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir. Any more questions? Would y'all gentlemen like an update in about 60 days? Board? That's kind of-
That seems
That's
reasonable,
what
yes,
we've been
sir.
doing, about
Yes,
60
sir.
days. Can you give us an update, a couple months, 60
Take a
days
month
out?
off.
Yes,
come back.
we can do it. Also, please let your constituents know that if they ever have an issue, if they can reach out to you or to a member, like to Scott or Dave, as soon as Scott and Dave let us know, they typically reach out to our engineering group and as me as well. And normally within that day, we normally have some type of resolution or we have somebody out taking a look at the issue. You know, sometimes it's not us. We actually had a recent issue where it wasn't us, and it wasn't in this county, it was in another county. But we went on and fixed the problem anyway because, you know, you're guilty by association. So anyway, anything, please make sure you let them know and they'll let us know.
Yeah,
sir.
our folks ain't got no problem letting you know. They'll
Yeah.
call me in a second. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, absolutely. All right, Mr. Ingram?
Mr. Taylor, just for the sake of asking, I have a constituent that was with another company, not to mention Zito, and they went to I think Earthlink, but went to another provider, and called me complaining that the company in question came out and cut the cable right there at their house. What is the rationale behind that kind of business? Is that just retaliation or is it just a nasty way of doing business?
Could be, yes, sir.
So the existing provider so they switched from provider A
Yep.
to provider B.
Yep.
And when they did that, provider A came out and cut their cable at the house.
Exactly.
I don't know why they would do that, because the hope would be that maybe that customer might come back sometime, you know? And so if they, for them to do that, they're shooting themselves in the foot,
That's
right?
right.
Because now that customer's definitely never come back.
Yep.
Now, one of the things you should also know that once that cable touches that house or goes into that house, that's property of the house.
That's right.
Even if I ran it, as soon as I touch that house and affix it to that house, or I go into that house, that remains property of the house. That's by Virginia law. And so that's why they did it a foot away. But that's just, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
I'd heard that at one time, and I appreciate the clarification because I knew that you'd give us a good straight answer. Thank you,
Right.
sir.
You're welcome.
Any more questions, Mr. Taylor, gentlemen? Thank you for your time, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
And only thing
Appreciate
I'd like to say, I have had some complaints from some of the contractors. Be sure to express to them to leave people's property as well or better than when they got there. But everything that I know is being taken care of, but they would be respectful of the residents' property.
Yes, sir.
All right, I appreciate that. And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Moving to item 6A, we have a finance update. Pennsylvania County Code, Section 6.6, revisions of the elderly, disabled, and real estate tax exemption. Ms. Vanderhyde, welcome.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, Kim.
We're back again. I think Robin was with me the last time we discussed the relief for the elderly and disabled. And so I've done some research, which we had gotten quite a bit of research from Dayton, and his staff worked in getting information from different localities as to what everybody else was doing. Of course, those figures are all over the place. I think the last we heard from you all, you'd like to see $40,000. But I'm very much a numbers person that wants to hang my hat. Why are we picking $40,000? So I had a resident that actually called and made a recommendation, and I thought it was a very good recommendation. And that was to look at the Social Security cost of living adjustments and utilize those as a reference point to get, to see what will that do for us. So, of course, this has not been changed since 2018. So that's how I started, just to see, okay, does 40 make sense? I just wanted to make sure, what we're picking is something that we should be doing. So since 2018, of course, it's been a very interesting few years, and so inflation has been out of the sight, really. And so these are the largest increases that Social Security's had. But the total increase since 2018 has been 23.5%. If you apply that to $25,000, you're just shy of 31. And 31's what Robin and I presented, but I'm not really sure. Robin was the one that came up with that figure. Not sure how she came up with it, but it was pretty accurate. So I called the commissioner's office back last week just to check with them to see, because you could do this as soon as annually if you wanted to. Typically, we do it every 4 years during reassessment time. But if you all wanted to get closer to the $40,000 mark, what I then did was taken for the next 4 years, if you on average saw an increase of roughly 3% in cost of living increases for Social Security, and that could be on the money or it could be way out of line, you would be close to 35. So I could see 35. I really can't see 40 if you're trying to base it on something. So I have included in your packet a chart of what you all asked for and what it currently stands at. We did it at a $30,000 level, $35,000 level, and a $40,000 level. And just to be clear, nobody really gets 100% satisfaction from, there is an exemption cap on your taxes. So the exemption cap currently is at $450. In all of these scenarios, we would move that up to $550, so you're getting more that you're allowed. And your net worth would also increase in $5,000 increments. So currently it's at 60. If we did 30, it would be 65, and then 70 and 75. So I would recommend that we would go with 35. 35 is where Danville's at as far as elderly. Now, they do a different step if you are totally disabled, and they do bump it up to 40. So that's the only difference in those two. So we would be in line with Danville. You would be set for the next 4 years if you wanted to do it like you currently are. So then we would review those cost of living increases where we own the money. We would adjust that for that back piece, and then we would maybe anticipate what we're going to do for the next 4 years. Because you would hate to set something really low now and then something go haywire again with inflation. So that's why I'm suggesting not 31, but maybe adjust it up more closer to that $40,000 range and set it at 35. So that's my recommendation, but you all certainly could do whatever you want to. But I'm here to answer any questions. We would just have to change those 3 places in your code to reflect whatever you decide. So it would be your income threshold level, your net worth maximum, and then the maximum exemption amount. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. If you'd like for us to go back to the drawing board, we certainly can. You do have time. The important part of this program is advertising the fact that we have the program and giving citizens sufficient time to enroll in the program, and they can be, considered. I think a lot of people, either because they don't know it exists or they're too proud to admit that they want to utilize the program, are the 2 main reasons why they don't use it. But we certainly need to push out PR when the fall comes. I think those applications are available in December. They're due back by the middle of February. Any questions?
Yep. The board's pleasure, gentlemen. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Dudley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kim, you're basing this on cost of living, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
For Social Security. So Social Security Administration,
Okay.
mostly your disabled people, if they're drawing Social Security benefits from the Social Security
Sure.
Administration, they would get that increase as well as your elderly population.
I was wondering, what was the average across the board increase in tax this year that we set as far as the rate at 56 cents? How much? Because the reason I'm asking is, they're looking for relief on that real estate, correct?
Correct.
Tax, okay. And if it went up, do you know how much across the board it went up? 25, 30?
I mean, your real estate value went up about 37%.
Yes.
So, and then on average, I guess the increase would have been, trying to think of my own. I didn't do that math. I only did the math
I
on
understand.
the value.
What I'm getting at is, what's really going to hit them now is the real estate, because, of course, it's more.
And this would be on all of their tax, so personal property.
Yes.
All of that is reviewed, and
Yeah.
you get a certain percentage, even to their solid waste household fee. They may not have to pay all
Right.
of that, but the cap of their relief is going to be this $550 amount, if that's
Right.
what we choose to go to.
Okay. I was just thinking that the lion's share of the taxes that they're going to be paying more is going to be on real estate.
It will be. But
And I'm
then,
just thinking about
of
breaks
course,
for the elderlies.
if it's an elderly person that may meet the income threshold level, they get to own their home and 1 acre of land that's not included, but it's property outside of that. So people that really need this program won't have much. Or if, let's say it's a farm, most of those people, even elderly people, they will make sure that that land is in land use,
Okay.
because usually it's worked.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tuck, yes, sir.
Thank you,
Ms.
Kim. Thank you.
Van der Haat, for the insight. Let me ask, what is the current net worth maximum now?
The net worth maximum is $60,000.
Okay,
So if
so-
we go to 35, we would be bumping that to 70.
Correct.
That does not include your house and 1 acre of land.
Okay. And the reason I asked that question is the fact that not only are we giving them some relief actually on the taxes itself, but you're giving them an additional $10,000 of buffer. And I want everyone to understand
That's
that,
right.
which should offset, the increase of taxes,
Yes,
per capita, if you will. So I think I'm comfortable with the 35. At least we have a rationale or some type of matrix to use when we're actually calculating it, rather than just throwing a figure out in the air, okay? So I'm good there, so I don't think that you need to continue to waste time on this when efforts can be used in a different direction. So me personally, I'd like to see the board move in a direction of advertising the 35 so that we can be in a position to actually start getting the word out to the constituents, because that's going to be critically important.
I'd be willing to make that motion. That's good. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Any more questions? Only thing I noticed, Ms. Van der Haat, is the maximum exemptions. It don't change. It stays at 550, regardless whether your network changes.
And we can change
I just
that.
wondered, the maximum is 550, so it's 450 now, so.
And I just
So
left that
that's,
maximum
that's
at
the
the same,
amount
but
that they
you
can actually get off on their tax, is the
Correct.
maximum cap.
Correct.
So,
But if you want, say you wanted to go with the 40, you could make it 650. If you want to keep in that same
Yeah.
level, because we just increased it by
Right.
$100.
okay. Any more Mr. Bowman? Yes, Mr. Ingram?
No, I was going to say, competition can be good, and you quoted the city of Danville, and I got a call on that, got a couple on that. So if theirs is 35, I'd like to see us do better. Mr. Bowman?
Mr. Dahl?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bowman, go ahead.
Kim, first of all, thank you for the work you put into this, because it was something I think may have slipped by us had we not brought it up during the budget presentation. So thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate the data that you've got here. I personally would like to see it go to 40. I think I brought that up during the budget cycle to have it at 40. And the reason being, there are a number of people out there that, based on these assessments, everything went up. And so this actually takes into consideration some of those reassessments. And secondly, I'd like to make sure that the word gets out there through whatever means we have available, whether it's through the PIO, whether it's through the radio, whether it's the newspaper, word of mouth, whatever, as early as possible to let these folks know that this is available. And so they don't just slip through the cracks. And, we can identify those folks through property records. And we can make sure that they are aware of this, but we need to make sure that we get the word out there. But I would like to stay at 40 with this, and good work. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
let me also say, and again, thank you, Ms. Van der Haat. We have a rationale, and the reason I want to support the 35, it's not going to make any difference based on what I'm looking at here, and, kind of to kill two birds with one stone. The maximum exemption, Mr. Chairman, that you raised the issue about, and the 40, Mr. Bowman, that you're concerned about, this maximum exemption is going to pretty much stay the same. And if memory serves me correctly, property owners with a $200,000 home experience maybe a $500, and I'm just kind of going from memory, somewhere in the neighborhood of $500, $530 increase. Okay, so now we're looking at this level being set at 35. They should be pretty much neutral in terms of what they were expected to pay based on the increase of the value of their property. Plus, they have that $10,000 buffer. So you're actually at net zero, that particular homeowner or whatever. They have their home exempt and they have the 1 acre of land. Am I correct?
Mhm.
That
Okay.
is correct.
So you're really at net zero in terms of their being affected by the most recent tax increase based on, the reassessment. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Mr. Ingram, I'm sorry.
I just got a news flash from the city. During their next fiscal year, they're going up to 40,000. City of
Okay.
Danville will be going to 40.
Any
Do you
more
want to leave
comments?
the
or-
exemption as it stands, if you go to 40? Or do you want to leave it at the 550? I just left that maximum exemption at
Well-
550.
I'm just sitting here looking, just to compromise here. If we went for 35, why don't we raise the maximum exemption to 600, $50 more, and that'd give them a better exemption, to cap it off, if it did get that far, and most of them won't, if we wanted to go with 35. But I want to do something, so I'm open to the board's pleasure on that. Any more questions or comments for Ms. Vanderhyde?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
not
sir.
for Ms. Vanderhyde, but I would support raising the maximum exemption to $600, but leave it at 35, because what you will do if you go to $40,000, okay, based on the, I would say, median income in this county, you're going to actually create a situation wherein you're going to cause yourself to lose quite a bit of revenue based on that threshold.
All right.
Because
any
it
further-
is truly for people that need it.
Right. Any more comments or questions for Ms. Vanderhyde?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with
Okay.
35, and like you said, Darrell,
Raise the exemption up.
Yes, sir.
I'm good with that,
Do
but
you need that in form of a motion?
we're gonna need
No?
something to
Yes,
go to the
that'll go
full
to the-
board.
Yes. So you want to change the threshold on 35 to 600?
If it passes, leave it at 35 and move the threshold to 600. Move it up $50.
Y'all good with that?
Of course, you have the
I'm
30
okay
at
with that.
550, then if you go to 40, you still got 550, so,
Okay.
That's a
I mean,
fairly
this is
good
just a
compromise, yeah.
compromise, raise it up $50
Yep.
bucks.
Plus,
I'm good if everybody else.
these folks are getting $10,000
Increasing
buffer
it.
there in terms of the increased value.
So I'm good with that.
Did you see where the City of Danville's net worth changed? Because I had their net worth value, or their threshold was at 50. Their net worth. That's for-
50,000?
Yes.
Okay.
And see, ours would now be going to 70. So even though the income level, if we went with 35, your net worth would be more. You would be allowed more to qualify for the program. But I don't know, Danville's might have went up too, their
Did
net worth.
they have a cap on their
I
maximum?
don't have their cap.
Okay,
Let's
I
see.
just-
I might have it in some of these
That's fine.
documents.
I'm good with that and moving it up $50 to make it 600.
Yeah, the cap I don't have in my paperwork for
Yeah, I
Danville.
have no problem with
Okay.
that whatsoever.
All right, I'll entertain a motion that we, from somebody, that we can move this to the full board to vote on tonight.
Yes, sir, Mr. Tucker, I think he's going to jump in.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, the motion will be leave it at 35,000. The
600.
exemption will be at 600.
And net worth at 70.
Yes,
Net worth
700. All right, I got a motion by Mr. Tucker. I'll take a second.
I'll second that motion.
Second by Mr. Dudley.
Sounds
Any
good to
further
me.
discussion? Not hearing any, we ready to vote? Everybody's come up.
Break it on down, I ain't seen it yet.
Do you have a vote on there?
I've already voted.
All right, it's not showing me any. I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay.
This thing's
Uh-oh.
toe up from the flow up, every day in the morning.
All right, Mr. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Dudley,
Yes.
Mr. Height,
Yes.
Mr. Ingram,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle, Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Dalton.
Yes. All right, gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Van der Heiden. Let's see, we got another section for you, the
Yep.
capital improvement reimbursements.
I would, can I just make a suggestion?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
When they mailed the second half of the bills out this year, if we could talk to the treasurer to see if we could put a flyer or something in that tax bill, that way every citizen that pays taxes will get notified
Good
of
idea.
this possible relief.
You're right, that's a good idea, because a lot of people don't have internet.
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor ain't moving fast enough.
Okay.
Not out my way.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Mr. Height.
I got a note on it.
Very good.
I'll make sure that
All right.
I'll move that along.
Sounds good. Thank you.
The next item that I have for you all is about the reimbursement resolution, and this is primarily for those safety vestibules. So just to give you a little bit of information, if you don't remember, last month, we actually it was the month, yeah, it was May. May's meeting you all approved for us to do the applications for the literary fund loans. And we could only apply for 3 schools because we had already put out to bid the safety vestibules and the other safety measures we were going to do. Because we had put it out to bid, had received those bids, and they had been awarded, the literary fund was no longer available for that particular project. So they are starting that work as the students are not in school this summer. And that is on 14 different schools. So the estimated cost for those safety vestibules is roughly $6.5 million. We won't actually have $6.5 million in that fund for this summer. So we wanted to make sure that we are covered 100% when the time comes for us to borrow funds to cover these projects. The reason we wouldn't want to do that right now is because we don't know if we will be accepted into the literary fund program. Like, will our projects, they definitely qualify, but it may be we're not at the priority level that we get the funding as opposed to other schools. So I explained to Dr. Jones that this is going to be a safety measure we can put in place. So in case the literary fund falls through, we can do the funding for all those projects at one time instead of having closing costs on 2 separate loans. So we wouldn't want to go that route at this point. We don't want to finance at this point because we want to wait to see if we're going to qualify or not. So this is just the vehicle that we use to make sure that we are covered in the event that, you know, we're going to wait maybe another year before we finance. And like I say, we're getting money in every single month on your sales tax. We're going to be right at $3.5 million by the end of June, maybe a little bit more. So that's one thing inflation has done for us, because 1% on higher cost products brings in more money into that fund, which is wonderful. And just to remind you all, we do have a dashboard on our website, and you can follow how much money's coming in, how much interest we've earned. It also shows, you know, what projects are moving right now. So, of course, before we started anything, the only thing coming in was the money. So you all could see that. So if anybody questions that, like, hey, we passed that referendum, what's going on with that? You can point them to our website, and it should tell them exactly what's going on at this point. Because we definitely want everybody to know what we're doing with this money, since they were good enough to us to vote for it and pass it. So that's one thing that you all will vote on at the 7 o'clock meeting, so that we'll be covered. And I wanted to make sure you understood what we were doing there.
Any questions? Mr. Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kim, how long is this project going to take to put these vestibules in?
They're hoping that it'll be done by the end of the summer.
Okay, so we're going to have funding in order to supplement what we already have, right?
Correct.
So-
And it'll just come out of fund balance if,
I understand.
of course, we need to do that.
So do we pay ourselves back?
Correct.
Then once we get money back,
Correct.
hopefully from the literary fund?
Right, and so how that works, because we get the money in from the sales tax, we also pay those bills for the school system.
Okay.
So they have project management, they do all of that, they handle their own bids and that kind of thing. They sign off on those invoices before they come to us. And then all of it's handled through one fund. So there's no way that it can be convoluted or anything like that.
Good.
And of course, we've got Vincent, he has made sure he secured that money and it's in an interest-bearing account. And so, and it's in a place where we can get to when we need to. So it's not like it's tied up in a CD or anything like that.
All right, good. That's what I needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Any more comments or questions, Ms. Vanderheim?
No, sir.
All right. Good. Thank you.
I've got
Ms.
one more thing.
All right.
One thing that we need to do is we need to make a change on our checking account. Currently, there are 3 signatories on our checking account. One is the clerk of the board, one is the chairman of the board, and one is the treasurer, Vincent Shorter. So what happens when we have somebody that is in one of those positions that leaves the organization? We need to put somebody in that slot. So right now, we still don't have that. So we've been doing some research. We've checked different localities, what they do. I've checked with our auditors. I've checked with the bank. I've talked to Vincent Shorter. And we think the logical thing to do is to name a clerk that's not your county administrator. So I had Kaylin do some research, and a lot of your used to be deputy clerks are now the official clerk of the board. Your county administrator is just your county administrator. So she got some very, very good information. So the Code of Virginia allows you to do that. It's Code Section 15.2-1538. It's called the clerk for the governing board, and it said the governing body of every locality in this Commonwealth shall appoint a qualified person who shall not be a member of the governing body to record the official actions of such governing body. The person so appointed shall be called clerk for the Board of Supervisors or council, as the case may be. So when I talked to Vincent, he was like, absolutely, that way that person is usually pretty consistent. So we would name Kaylin instead of deputy clerk. She would become the clerk of the board, and she is the official one that does all your recordings of everything. She keeps track of the minutes. She does, she would also be that signatory on decisions that you all make, like if it's something for VDOT or there's a grant that's been awarded. We have been challenged in the past where we needed the county administrator's signature and they're not in the office, and we really need that signature. So it makes it a lot easier for us. And just to put it in perspective, out of 207 localities that are registered under the Virginia Municipal Clerks Association, 162 of them, they have county administrator and the clerk to the board as 2 separate positions. And then we have surrounding localities that do the same thing. They are Campbell County, City of Danville, the towns of Chatham, Gretna, Hurt, Franklin County, Roanoke County, Amherst, Appomattox, Caswell, Rockingham County, and Patrick County. And they're just the ones right around us. So we just think it's a good time to make that change. Then we don't have to be worried about, oh no, somebody's signing checks that's no longer here. So, and not just that, it just helps things run a lot smoother. So I would like for this to be added to the night meeting if you all are okay with that. This is, not something that would be additional funds for Kaylin, this is really what she does. She's just the deputy, and the county administrator here has always just been also the clerk of the board. and I'm here to answer questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to add, Kim, that's a very good idea. As a matter of fact, in my previous experience, that was exactly what we did, was to separate those duties because the clerk is usually the one that's going to be the constant, if you will.
Right.
And so yeah, that's a great idea, as long as she's willing to do it.
Oh, I've asked her how many times, now you sure you want to do this? But she's also going to know the action of the board.
That's right.
And she's not going to do something that you all didn't approve. So,
It's all good. Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Van Hyde, thank you for bringing that up in this meeting because, as everyone is aware, that particular function was typically handled by the county administrator. And right now, we don't have a county administrator nor an interim, so the business of the county must continue. We got to continue to pay the bills. We got to continue to get certain documents signed, that sort of thing. So I'm going to support that at our later business meeting. The only thing I would ask is, and I'm sure it's already been done, but and I'm sure that was taken care of when Ms. McCluster joined the team. But we got to make sure, background checks, all that kind of stuff is in place. And I'm sure you, as my dad used to say, you got credit enough to buy the place, just can't pay for it. But all of those things, have to be addressed. But I'm comfortable with that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Tucker.
Yes, sir.
Any more comments?
I would
Yes, sir. Go ahead,
I would
Mr.
just say if it added additional responsibilities and work, that she certainly should be considered to be compensated for that.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
I
Davis.
will just say, it's really not going to be, really, when you have the county administrator serving as that and the clerk, it's the deputy clerk that prepares all that information anyway, so,
That's right.
thank
I was just
you.
thinking about all the work that you did leading up
Thank
to
you.
the presentation by Ms. Van der Heide, but thank you.
All right. All right, gentlemen. Can we hit a vote, a motion?
So moved.
All right.
We need to
Motion by
do a
Mr.
motion
Tucker.
to add this.
Second.
Yes. Second by Mr. Bowman. Okay. Any further discussion?
Kim, you did a good job.
We're going to do this verbally
Have a
because it's
seat.
already not
Thank
letting
you,
me
Ms.
do that.
Van der Heide.
All right, Mr. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Dudley,
Yes.
Mr. Height,
Yes.
Mr. Ingram,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
Mr. Dalton.
Yes. All right. If the motion passes, we're moving to item 6B. We have a mass zoning ordinance revision. It's Ms. Ragsdale. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I think the last time we had a work session for the zoning ordinance rewrite was in January. And the Berkeley group came before you all, and we had conversations that generally focused on the campground regulations, trees, and then flag signs. So the Berkeley group has done what you all requested of them, and they put together, get my information
With the
together.
revisions.
They put together this document compiling basically the way that other localities, either similar to us in their demographics or their location, regulate campgrounds. So as you can see, you all discussed temporary worker housing. The Berkeley group found that most localities don't have a definition for a true temporary worker housing. They're considered farm workers or migrant labor. That does not really meet what you all were trying to accomplish. They did not find anyone else that had that definition, and quite frankly, they felt that it was going to be difficult for them to adequately define it in a way that it could be regulated separately from just traditional campgrounds. What they did find is that a lot of localities don't even offer. Let's see, I can scroll down. So this is all farm, and this is all in your packet. This is all either farm worker housing or migrant labor housing. But when you get to actual campgrounds, so this is the way that these localities regulated campgrounds. The longest period of time that anyone allowed one person to stay at one site was 180 days. Most sites were 2 weeks. Augusta County, which is very similar to us in demographics, they allow up to 180 days, but they did not allow you to move to a different site. At that 180 days, you had to leave the campground. So what the Berkeley Group and staff have discussed is extending that 120-day stay to 180 days, but allowing you to remain in the campground. At the end of 6 months, you would just move to another location within the campground, so that you did maintain that transient, basically what,
Yes.
so that what a campground should be. It remains transient. That would prohibit people from building decks and things like that onto their camper and basically making them become a fixed structure on the property. So this is at the discretion of the board, but that at this time, that's what staff in the Berkeley Group are recommending, is that we extend that 120-day stay to 180 days, but then allow them to not put a cap on how long they can stay within the campground overall. They would just have to move to a different site.
I have a question on it. So every 6 months, they can move and stay there for, what, 2 or 3 years, or?
They could stay there as long as they wanted. They just could not stay in the same site.
They have to move it every
So
6 months.
you could move to the site next door.
Right.
But you would have to remain transient enough to move your RV to another location within the campground.
Okay. As long as they can do that, I'm fine with that. I mean, I don't want to have a limit of 180 days, because that would destroy these private campgrounds.
Yes, and that,
I mean, it would devastate them.
that's why staff, we just eliminated that, but said that every 180 days, you would have to at least move spots. And that would just maintain, the transient use.
Right.
And, not allow anything to become a permanent fixed resident on a property.
Okay.
So moving on to the flag signs, staff is still having conversations with the Berkeley Group about that. They have removed all restrictions. Staff does not feel that all restrictions should be removed, because flags can be used for advertising. So staff would like to see some restrictions on flags that are in commercial and industrial districts. We don't know exactly what that looks like, but we're still having conversations. But if you all would like to completely remove that, we can do that. We just have concerns because that can be advertising, and we do limit every other type of advertising in commercial and industrial districts. Staff can't, according to laws, staff cannot judge a sign based on what it says. We have to just base it on its type. So it doesn't matter what is on the sign. We base it on the type of sign, and then apply restrictions that way. So we can't say that, if there's a directional sign and it's for a church, it's okay if it's off-site, but if it's for some other type of business, it's not okay. We can't look at the content. So that's why we had those restrictions, because anything like, I know that you all have seen a lot of businesses put those flags up on the front of their property along the property line. If you put 60 of them out there and you can't see the building, staff would like some way to regulate that, and we would do that based on the sign square footage, advertising space on the sign. We would like to find some happy medium so that we can at least put a cap on it, but not over-regulate it, and we don't want to regulate it at all for, residential and agricultural properties.
So is
But
that
we just want to make sure that we're not completely opening the door for some adverse effects on other types of flag signs that we don't actually think of as flags per se, but would fall under that definition.
Now, do we want to identify the difference? Are you talking about banners that's down, or are we talking about flags that's on a pole? I mean, I've never seen nobody advertise nothing on a flagpole. I mean, I've seen the banners stretched out.
So those are all fall under that flag sign definition, because they
could
fall
see
under
maybe
that
But
definition.
not any flags. I mean, I hate to restrict anybody with Old Glory, if you can fly or not.
And we would, I mean, all of your
I'd have a hard time.
governmental flags are exempt.
Yeah.
All of those are exempt,
Right,
regardless.
okay. Anybody wants to,
I got a question.
yes, sir,
No,
go ahead, Mr. Dunn.
If you did.
No, I'm finished.
You
I'm finished.
sure?
Yeah.
Okay, you've worked in zoning and all. What would be your recommendations to us? This is your part of your profession, I'm just saying.
I would recommend placing some restriction on the total square footage of signage or flag signs allowed on the property. And I say that because you could end up with, visibility issues. You could end up with just signage clutter, which is not good for aesthetics or anything. Right now, we don't have any way to regulate that. And I know you all have been past businesses where they have all of those banners lined up, and it can be very distracting.
Confusing, too.
So we would like front yard, but on commercial and industrial properties, we regulate every other type of signage for them, and this is just another type of signage that staff would recommend we regulate to some extent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm-
Go ahead, Mr. Bowman.
just for clarity, on the flags, are we talking about these flags on these little whip poles that are out here?
That falls under a flag sign, yes.
That does, okay.
Yes.
So are we talking about that, or are we talking about standalone flag poles with a flag, like a U.S. flag on it?
So a U.S. flag would be exempt from
Okay.
this regulation. We would not regulate the U.S. flag, we would not regulate the Virginia flag, any type of governmental agency, we would not regulate their flag. We are talking about any type of other flag, because I can't judge it based on content, it is just whether or not it meets that definition. So anything that any other type of flag or those banners that flap that are located on a commercial or industrial property would fall under that regulation.
All right, so I'm just, what's coming to mind here, and when it comes to these regulations, I really don't want to go out here and be so restrictive that we just are taking away all the rights of the people. So when I go down 29 and I see this huge Confederate flag out there, what, are we talking about that also?
So I believe that's on A1 property. I'd have to double check.
I mean, you can
if
see that
it's-
for half a mile, when you pull
It would, it would be grandfathered at this point. If this is adopted, that flag could stay up indefinitely, as long as it didn't come down for more than 2 years.
Okay.
It can never get any bigger, but it could remain indefinitely. So anything that is existing now, this would not apply to. And these regulations would only apply if the property was zoned either B1 or B2 or M1 or M2. It would not apply if the property was zoned A1, R1, RC1, residential multifamily, any of our residential zonings.
Okay. All right, that's a little clearer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. And if, Mr. Whittle, go ahead,
Do
sir.
you have anything that says, they're up there flying these flags, they tore all the crap. Do you have anything that takes that down?
We do not.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hart, yes, sir.
Yeah, I like the idea of just commercial business areas, because I've been in locations in the southeast, and you have those banners in front of businesses, very distracting to me if you're driving down the highway. Literally they'll put them right out on the roads, because some businesses, they want to catch your attention and I guess cause you to wreck in their front yard or something, I don't know. But yeah, I think business parks, commercial properties, I'm good with that, because we do need to, our business parks and all don't need to be junked up with a bunch of banners and stuff going down the roadway. Just, a size limit and a number, to me is, we're already regulating how many trees in a parking lot per spot, lighting. I doubt if most businesses would have any issues.
And our goal is not to regulate it to a point, we're not trying to over-regulate it. So, we could have a very flexible number, or size allowed, but I don't think that it would be wise to just remove all regulations based on that one type of signage, because it is technically a type of signage when you regulate every other type of signage that exists. So I think if you're going to be consistent, we should regulate all types of signage in some way, even if it's loosely.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Ms. Ragsdale, and I understand you very well. And I'm kind of right there with you. There should be some happy medium. We don't want to over-regulate, and then we don't want to run so loose that anything goes. So I would be interested in taking a look at the language. So I would suggest this board send you back to the Berkeley group and we kind of get something down in writing that we can kind of put our eyeballs on and kind of think through and kind of go from there. Okay, that's kind of where I am.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Any more comments, questions, Mr. Ingram?
The bad thing about these revisions is it can be so restrictive, and whether we're talking about a business or individual, restricting their freedom to fly what they want, to me is problematic, and I do understand what you're talking about, Mr. Hyde. As far as the safety aspect, and what Mr. Tucker said, I totally agree. It needs to be refined, but Ms. Ragsdale, the thing that I'm sort of stumped on is in the packet here, it says the deadline for county revisions is July 1, so that the advertising deadline required by the Code of Virginia can be met, but yet we talk about public hearings in August and September. I'm talking with a couple of colleagues, and we agreed that we needed more time to weed through. How many pages is it, Mr. Bowman?
270-some
270-some pages. And personally, I think some of it can be scrapped. But is this, if we approve this based on the Code of Virginia, we can still make substantial revisions and changes, correct?
You can make minor revisions. What staff would recommend is if you want to look at the flag portion of this again, we set up a brief work session prior to this being advertised. So the timeline now is it would go to the August Planning Commission meeting and it would come before the board in September. So we would advertise it the last 2 weeks in July. So we would need to set up, we could even do it at your work session at the July meeting, I believe, and still have enough time. If not, we would set up a work session the week before your board meeting just to go over, proposed revisions at that point and see kind of what, you all were comfortable with so that we could adequately advertise what you are happy with and what you would like to move forward with.
Kind of iron some stuff out.
Yes.
Yep.
But the Berkeley group, what they're saying is they need all revisions by July 1 so that they have adequate time to enter it into the document. But I think if everything else is settled on at that point, and we can make sure that we nail something down at that work session, then we would be okay to have everything in place so that we could adequately advertise and take it before Planning Commission in August.
Who determines minor versus major changes?
That would be a question for a county attorney.
If it's more than a couple words, and you advertise it and then you change it, the citizens might not know what they we're doing and therefore would object to it. So if it gets to be paragraphs or multiple sentences, I think you would have to get it clean enough to advertise it properly so there would be sufficient notice to the citizenry.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Tucker.
thank you,
You
sir.
finished, Mr. Ingram?
Ms. Ragsdale,
Okay.
okay,
You
I'm
fine.
sorry.
No,
Were
you're
you-
fine. He's done.
Everybody good?
You good.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ragsdale. That brings up a pretty interesting point to Mr. Ingram's point. Is there a way that possibly, and I know some of us that were on the previous board, we were able to have meetings with the Berkeley group. They did the presentations and gave us the packets. And we have 4 new, is that right, members of the board? 3 new? Okay, so my question is, can you get that packet in front of all of us again and let us review it?
We can.
Because
We
time is of
have-
the essence.
We have all of the presentations that they've done from all of those work sessions because they were in your packet. So I'll get with Kaylin and we can send those out.
Okay.
And their
Okay.
PowerPoint presentations pretty clearly spell out the changes that are made throughout the ordinance. So I think if you looked at their PowerPoint presentations, you could get caught up pretty quickly on the changes that are being proposed.
I mean, thank you. I need to review, I'll confess, the way information is coming at us. But, I just don't like to vote for stuff in the blind, and I know these gentlemen just coming on the board. They want to kind of get up to speed before we actually pin down the vote.
I can get with Kaylin and we can try to get that out either this week or very beginning of next week
Thank
so
you
that
so
you
much.
all have plenty of
Thank you.
time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Mr. Ingram?
I know a lot of people, when they went to the website and they read selective readings of the ordinance, and it's like animals, calling them units and things like that, and it became very complicated. And I made the suggestion, I'm sure you remember, that we do like public hearings in all 4 parts of the county like we've done in the past with the budget. And then the Berkeley group came back and said it'd be close to $18,000, and we surely was not going to spend that kind of money. It would have been very kind of them to include it in the work. So as far as myself, I found that to be very problematic. And, again, I was thinking that we had a little bit more time. And going back to what Mr. Hunt said, with some of the stuff I read, it's going to be more than 1 or 2 words. I mean, I might vote to strike the whole ordinance, but that's just the possibility.
Mr. Ingram, anything else?
I think that's enough for now.
Any more questions or comments?
No, sir.
And you said that the banners can't be separate, or the flags can't be separate?
I can
I mean,
ask them,
If we could just
but
get flags to themselves and leave banners with the signs,
Banner would be
it
considered
might not
a
be
flag.
quite as
it
confusing.
depends on the definition. So we
Yeah.
would have to figure out if we could craft that definition in a way that was able to eliminate, because those
Right.
banners are very similar to flags.
Yeah.
Because a lot
I mean,
of
the way they attach, the material they're made out of, they're very similar to flags. So, I mean, I'll be happy
Yeah.
to go back to the Berkeley group and see if we can't
'Cause
wordsmith some
a
definition.
lot of your
but-
business, they have huge American flags.
And that would all be exempt. They could
Right.
continue to
But
fly
just
the
keep
American
it-
flag whatever size they wanted to.
Yeah, keep your flags to themselves and put the banners with the signs. I understand that.
Because the language shows that basically banner is considered a flag, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, they need
And it may be something that
to reword that.
it may be something that you put a cap on the size or the number, and then they have the ability to apply for a waiver. We could look at something like that. I know
Okay.
that you brought up another time, I think at work session, Toyota flying a massive banner or something. They might be able to apply for a waiver, and depending on the location that it was going and how it was going to be attached and things like that, it might be able to be granted similar to a special use permit. That may be something that we can look at. That way you're not completely opening the door, but you're not completely shutting it either. You still have a path forward if they would like to do something above what the regulation would allow. So I can approach them and ask them to try to come up with some things like that too, if that's something that you all would be interested in.
Some new, yeah. I mean, you restrict the banners, you would affect a lot of stuff. I mean, even our local churches getting ready to start Vacation Bible School. We're going to tell them they can't have a banner after advertising that.
Well, I think those are considered temporary signage.
Okay, but
So they can put them up for periods of time.
I mean, just a lot of things you see banners on. Yes,
Mr.
sir. Go
Chairman,
ahead, Mr. Tucker.
Ms. Ragsdale, again, I'm going to trust you to make sure that it's communicated to the Berkeley group that we want to be open and inviting as far as businesses, and we want good neighbors, that sort of thing, as they wordsmith this particular policy.
I will make sure
all.
that I pass that along to them.
Thank you.
Yep. And on the campground, the only thing they're proposing to change is that 180 and then move every 180 days?
Yes.
Nothing else is,
No.
okay.
Just
I'm good.
extending that. And then the parking, they did increase, they relaxed the requirement to 1 tree per every 10 parking spaces. And that only applies to parking lots with over 100 spaces. So you're not talking about your smaller mom and pop establishments. These would be your larger, companies and food lines and things like that are
Box
used to
stores.
doing these everywhere that they develop.
Okay. Any more questions, Ms. Vanderheim? I mean, Ms.
No.
Ragsdale, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just one other. In looking at the ordinance here, and I, just want for clarification, the highlighted pieces in here are the changes that Berkeley Group is recommending, or is this a complete rewrite of our current ordinance?
This is a complete rewrite.
Okay, so this is...
That's why we could not go through and do a red line version.
Okay.
As has previously been asked, because the layout of the ordinance has changed, articles have been moved around. It would just be it's too much that has changed to go through and do a red line version
Okay.
and be able to understand what the changes actually were.
And that's where I was going with this, because this actually needs to be read from line 1 to the end of the entire document. And I agree with Mr. Ingram here. It's not enough time in order to go through this, if in fact you take the time to read this and ask questions about it. I'm looking at the one on flag signs here right now. And that's what spurred this, is to find out, if they're authorized. Did our ordinance originally authorize these types of signs or flags or whatever?
Our ordinance did not
And so this-
differentiate between signage.
So this is brand new.
Yes.
So let me ask one other question. The electronic signs that you see in front of places, i.e. some of the churches, some of the businesses that have flashing, put messages up and all that, was that regulated in our original ordinance? Now,
Not at all.
Is it regulated in this ordinance? Okay.
It is.
So everything that's grandfathered in, I'm assuming, and I'll just throw one out, White Oak Worship Center.
Mm-hmm.
You come through there after the sun goes down and it's a bright white light hitting you. But it's a message board out there. So they're grandfathered in, but anybody else coming in and applying for something like that would have to go by this regulation.
That's correct.
Right? Okay. So
And if White Oak ever expanded their sign, it was ever moved,
Yeah.
altered in any way, it would have to conform to the new regulations.
Okay, all right, you answered it when I asked about the original versus this. So it has the Berkeley Group logo on it. I agree with Mr. Ingram here that we need time to rewrite or reread this, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Any further questions for Ms. Ragsdale?
Ms. Ragsdale, you did a good job.
Thank you, Ms. Ragsdale.
So would you all, because we are now 2 years into this project, and, we were originally looking at a July adoption. We moved that back to September. So staff does not want to continue pushing this down the road, and I understand that you all need time to review it, but, we would ask for some type of timetable on when this is going to be adopted, because we have new uses and things that are coming daily. that are not in our current ordinance that could be very detrimental to the county if they are not properly regulated. So staff would not advise continuing to push out the adoption of the ordinance and update indefinitely. We would like to see this, since it has been a 2-year process, we would like to see this adopted at some point in the near future. So if you all could, maybe give us some direction on when you all think you'll be ready to adopt it so that we can pass that on to the Berkeley group.
Any recommendations from the board? Move it out another 30 days, or, I'm just saying, what is it going to take? You were looking at September for approval. What do we need, gentlemen?
So if we have it scheduled for next month, get the information out to everybody next month to maybe make a decision on it, send it to planning in August and back to us in September. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
For
Okay.
approval?
Yeah. What's your thoughts?
30 days should
Yeah.
give everyone an opportunity to kind of rifle through it or figure out what you want to include or whatever.
So are you saying stay on the same timeline that we have now as in planning commission in August and coming back to you all in September, or
No, move.
No,
September and October?
Move
Yeah,
everything
move
up
it
30
down.
days. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
That'll be our
September for
homework.
Planning Commission, and then for us in October.
Yep.
Is that correct?
I'm good with that.
Is everyone good with that?
Yeah.
Moving it up 30 days, each process, okay?
Okay, I will pass that
All
along.
right,
Okay,
sounds good.
thank you so
Thank you.
much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
All right, moving to item 7, business discussion. Mr. Hunt, do we have anything that we need to discuss?
No, I think we're just going to add the vote about the elderly tax
Yes, sir.
situation to new business. We'll have a vote on Ms. McCluster being clerk of the board. Is there anything else? Kalen? I don't think so. Just those two things will be added from matters from the
Okay.
work session, okay?
Okay.
All right, we're moving to item 8, closed session. Mr. Hunt, can you read us into closed session?
Yes, sir. We have 3 closed session matters this afternoon. The first one is legal consultation. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A8. Subject matter, employment matter regarding former sheriff's employee. Purpose, consultation with legal counsel / legal advice and discussion regarding the same. The second item in closed session is economic development update. This is discussion concerning prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the businesses or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A5. Subject matters, projects Rain, Big Dipper, Toy Story, Thunder, and Ballyhoo. Purpose, economic development projects update / discussion on unannounced prospective businesses / industries. And the third and final closed session for this afternoon is personnel, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. Legal authority, Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A1. Subject matter, county administrator hiring / search. Purpose, review / discussion of related next steps. Mr. Chairman, it's now appropriate to have a motion, a second, any discussion, and a vote to go into closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Tucker, a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Height. Any further discussion? Not hearing any, we're ready to vote. I don't have anything, Ms. McCluster.
Okay. Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Height?
Yes.
Mr. Ingram?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes. All right. Closed session. Cut it.
We will now certify closed session. Be it resolved at the Pennsylvania County Board of Supervisors work session on June 18th, 2024, the board hereby certifies by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any board member believes that there was a departure from the requirements of the act, he shall so state prior to the vote indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the board's minutes. I'll now take an oral roll call vote. Mr. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Mr. Height?
Yes.
Mr. Ingram?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Mr. Dalton?
Yes.
The meeting is certified. It's now appropriate to adjourn the work session.